stock about 40%. Make pretty good money. Then we saw Kamala Harris, and she and her husband, both attorneys, and I don't know if anybody seen their tax return? I mean, like they paid a humongous amount of taxes. They're down here. And then you have this fellow Donald Trump, that most people either love Donald Trump or hate Donald Trump. There's like no one in between. Seriously, is there anybody in between with Donald Trump? I don't think so. But what Donald Trump said, so Harris, she said, yeah, here's my tax return. And Donald Trump says, I'll show you my tax return when I'm not under audit. Which, of course, all of the accountants in the world are going, we're just laughing because he's over here. These guys get audited every year. He will always be under audit. So we're just going, that's just a really good way, politically safe way to say, I'm never going to show you my tax returns. So, of course, what had to happen, of course, the New York Times had to get somebody to break the law and go in and dig up his tax returns. And sure enough, he didn't pay taxes 10 out of 15 years. And 2 years, he paid a whopping $750. And, of course, Glenn and I are going, what's wrong with his accountant that he paid $750 in taxes? And here's what's even better, right? In the New York Times, they said, look, Trump made $400 million on The Apprentice. And we're like going, wow. I mean, who's like here is like, wow, right? I mean, $400 million for that show? Seriously. Shark Tank, maybe, but come on. And then what did he do is he took the money and he put it over here, right? Invested it in real estate all over the world, actually. And what did he get back? He got a $70 million refund. Okay? And, of course, he's like humming and hawing over this. Is the New York Times really telling the truth? I'm going, I'm sure they're telling the truth. That's exactly what is logical to happen if you take $400 million and you put it into real estate, you're going to get a $70 million refund. That's what happens. Okay? Now, how many prefer getting the refund than pay the tax? Raise your hand. Right? This is what we're talking about here. Now, the key here is these people over here behave differently than these people. And the real question is, why do these people get lower tax rates? And it's very simple. Most people see the tax law as this is, they're out to get me and they're going to collect as much money as I can. And what they really want to do is they're just wanting to raise the most money possible for the government. That is not actually the case. The primary purpose of the tax law, technically, is to raise money for the government. But the real purpose of the tax law, what's become the real purpose since the 1950s, is to provide incentives to business owners and investors, to taxpayers, basically, to do what the government wants done. So if you look over here, what do these people do? These people over here, they are primarily consumers, aren't they? They consume. That's what they do. They make money and they spend money. That's the definition of a consumer. They're not producing much. They're producing a little. Okay, great. We call these silent partners. Right? How many of you have ever gotten a paycheck? Raise your hand. And you looked at that paycheck and you go, what the hell? Who's this FICA guy? Or who's this WTH? It should be WTF. Because they're taking all this money out of my paycheck. Right? Well, because you're a partner with the government. We are all partners with government. Now, guess what? We get to choose. Over here, we'd be a silent partner. But these people are actually the producers. It's fascinating to me that in our world today, not in this room, but in our world today, producers are under attack. Right? Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, they're under attack. Right? For producing. And who are they under attack by? The people who made them rich. Right? I mean, who sends all that money to Amazon? It's the people who are complaining about Jeff Bezos being rich. I'm going, there's a connection here, folks. Right? So these are the producers. These are active partners. See, what happens over here is these people right here, what do? They produce jobs. They produce technology. That's what these people do. What do these people down here do? Oh, I don't know, something not so important. They produce housing, they produce energy, and they produce food. So if you look at it from the perspective that the actual politicians are looking at it, okay, and by the way, that is not changing this new bill. This new bill treats people exactly the same way. I can walk through example after example how employees are still going to get hit hard and the producers are going to get tax benefits in the new bill that is supposed to be out there to tax the rich. Okay? Now, I find, and I say I, but Robert and I find that the best way to learn something is not to listen to a lecture. How many would you, I mean, really, if you had your choice? Okay, so then we pay zero tax. Most people are comfortable and understand that. But what's great about this group and what Brad teaches is that we now have a system where you can take the money and create an asset and pay zero tax. And that's new. That's new since 2017. The good news is that is not going away with this new tax bill. In fact, they're supercharging it. I'll tell you how they're supercharging it, because it's like, so you're complaining about the rich paying tax, and so what you're going to do is give us more ways to reduce our tax. I love it. So, it doesn't matter. Frankly, it can be business, right? If you put your money in your business, I do that a lot. Okay, I'm a business guy. I have like 4 ongoing businesses at all times, and I can put it in business and not pay tax. I can put it in real estate and not pay tax. Now, I can put it into paper and I won't pay tax on the earnings, but I'm really not going to get much of a tax deduction going in. Okay, I just don't have to pay tax while it's there, and then I'm going to pay tax when it comes out, which is, by the way, why we don't buy real estate in an IRA. Okay, because that's what happens. And then I've got commodities like energy and food, and then I don't pay tax there either. So what we have now is we just have this cool system. What happens is that we can make all the money we want here as long as we do 2 things. The first is we need debt. The magic of real estate is debt. That's the magic of real estate. Every once in a while you hear people, there are people out there, they're very popular, that say invest in real estate with no debt. I'm going, are you out of your mind? The whole point of real estate is debt. It's the whole point. Because here's what's going to happen. You're going to, let's say you make $100,000 here, right? Now what you're going to do is you're going to borrow $400,000 here, and you're going to buy a $500,000 piece of real estate over here. That's what we do. Because here's the great thing about the tax law. Bankers don't get tax deductions. Only investors get tax deductions. So if I use $100,000 of my money and $400,000 of the bank's money, I get a deduction based on my $500,000 purchase price. The banker doesn't get the deduction, I get the deduction. I don't know about you, I think that's pretty cool. And what that means is, it effectively means that I can take $100,000. I can even take this out of my IRA. Don't do that, you get paid tax. Guess what, folks? Your IRA is going to be taxed at some point. Whether you pay it now or later, it really doesn't make a difference. The only difference between paying it now and later is that you pay a 10% penalty. So if you're keeping your money in your IRA or your 401k because you don't want to pay tax and penalty, take the tax part off and say, is it really worth leaving it in there for 10%? I just want you to think about that. Okay, I'm going to get to that in a second because I just think that's a really important point. Now I can take and I can add on $400,000 of debt. And what I have is, I now have a $500,000 investment. And in today's world, and actually we just have 1 year left on this, I can get a depreciation deduction of anywhere from 20 to 25% in the very first year, which means my depreciation deduction is somewhere between $100,000 to $125,000, even though my investment was only $100,000. So I know that's a lot of numbers for right after lunch. So take 2 minutes and do your best to explain this to your neighbor. Say passive, meaning it doesn't matter how much you work in your business, it's passive. Well, some of the real estate developers got together and said this isn't fair, and they lobbied Congress. One of those real estate developers with a fellow by the name of Donald Trump. True story. And in 1993, they added a provision called the real estate professional provision.
Thanks to Donald Trump.
And what it said was, look, if you spend more time on real estate than you do any other kind of business, and it's at least 750 hours a year, then we're going to actually change real estate losses. They'll become ordinary. So it'll no longer be passive, it'll be ordinary. It just requires, instead of normal rule, which is 500 hours, it's going to be 750 hours, and you have to do more real estate than all your other businesses combined. So I hear a lot of people talking about, well, if I've got real estate losses, the only way to take advantage of those is if myself or my spouse can be a real estate professional. That is false. Look at this picture. What would be the other way? Well, what if I had ordinary income and I made my ordinary income passive? Well, now I'm in my now I'm in a passive bucket. Now my passive losses can offset my passive income. So Luann and I both run our own CPA firms. I have a few other businesses besides that. I'm never going to be a real estate professional. Luann is never going to be a real estate professional. Now, good news is, if you or your spouse can be a real estate professional, you're home free, because now it becomes ordinary, and this is nirvana. Okay, this is get out of jail free card. But for a lot of professionals, we can't do that. And so I keep hearing this lie. I call it a lie. I think it's ignorance from other CPAs that say, no. Or I'll hear it from investors that say, my CPA says I can't take this loss because I'm not a real estate professional. It's not true. You can't take this loss because you don't have any passive income to offset the loss with. But what if you could convert your active income, your ordinary income, to passive income? Now you're in the same bucket. Now you can do it. And now the question is, what's the question, Brad? How can I do that? Right? How can I do that? So I'm going to show you that. How many would like to know that trick?
I can tell.
I'm going to show you right now. I'm not going to tell you this is easy, because it's not. It's a fairly simple concept. But this is kind of like when you watch that car commercial where they're doing all that fancy stuff off-road, and they say, professional driver, don't do this in your backyard. Right? This is the same type of thing. Right? Professional driver, don't you do this in your backyard. Right? You need a professional driver in order to do this. In fact, you need more than one, because you need the CPA driver and you need the attorney driver. You need those two to be talking to each other, and they actually both have to understand them, which is like, there's only like, I've only met like 3 attorneys in the entire world that understand this. I do happen to know 50 CPA firms who understand it, because I taught it to them. Okay, so let's say that here's what you've got. Let's say you own a business, okay? And so, you know, my diagrams all have rules to them. So this is, let's say it's an S corporation. It's an LLC, tax as an S corporation. Here's the taxpayer right here. Now let's say we also own over here, we own some real estate. And maybe we own multiple properties here, right? Because I always like holding companies with real estate, because real estate, you know, if you look up the word tenant, the dictionary, it just says plaintiff. So over here, seriously, the question: if you're, how many of you are real estate investors currently, and how many are not yet? Okay, so if you're a real estate investor, the question is not will you be sued. The question is when will you be sued? Because at some point in your career you will be sued, which is why we do asset protection as part of our tax planning. We also do asset protection planning. Third thing we're going to do is we're going to do estate planning. I'm going to show you why right this minute. Because here's what happens. So now I own this over here. This is actually, let's say I've got my spouse over here. So we'll make, I've got taxpayer and I've got spouse. And let's say spouse owns the real estate, taxpayer owns the business. Just for simple. Okay? So now this is a partnership. Okay? And this is an S corporation. All right, now I need some magic here, because the problem is I've got $500,000 of income over here, and I've got $400,000 of loss over here, because I got all my depreciation from that wonderful bonus depreciation that we get right now. So I got this $400,000 loss. Here's the problem. The problem is passive loss, ordinary income. Passive loss can't offset ordinary income. So now this is where we get out the cards, right? The magic trick, right? It's not a show game, but it kind of feels like that. It's just that simple. What we're going to do is, taxpayer and spouse happen to have over here a child. Child is 4 years old. Not active in the business yet. Give him another 2 years. He'll be active in the business. Not active in the business yet. Okay, probably may not never be active in the business. What we're going to do is we're going to set up a trust here, because we don't want that child to ever have access to our money until like 50 years after we're dead. Right? And we want to control everything. So we want to make sure there's a trustee and it's not the child, and we want to make sure that everything's clean and we have complete control over everything. Now all we have to do though is, now we need the trust to own some of this, and the trust to own some of that. Now what happens? Well, the trust owns some of this, it's still passive, hasn't changed a thing, has it? But if the trust owns, let's say the trust owns, I don't know, 50% of this. Okay? Made that 50%, it would recognize $250,000 of income. What kind of income is that? It's passive. Oh my heavens. Now, over here, let's say we own, I don't know, 60% of this, which would be $240,000. Now this $240,000, what's that loss? Passive. What's this income? Passive. Guess what? They offset each other. All right. Even if you have no idea what I just talked about, do your best. Our money. So I did this. One of the first times I did it was years and years ago. I had a client. I had 8 children. 8 children. This was before kitty tax. So we got great tax rates on top of that. On top of this. He said, would you come talk to my kids at the holiday season so that you could explain to them? And I brought them all. I'm in their house, 8 kids with spouses, etc. I said, okay, here's rule number 1. Repeat after me. This is not my money. Okay? It's not. This is the fallacy people, they get in their head, well, if I give it away, I don't have it. Yeah, you do. Because as long as you're the sole voting member and you're the sole general partner here, you have complete control. Well, what if I need money? Great. Pay yourself a salary. great, take a loan. There's all sorts of ways to get money. You don't have to do it by getting a distribution. That's not the only way you get money out of a company. But that's why we don't do 100%, because we want to make sure we still control it. Even though you only put in 100, your basis is 500. So you can take losses up to 500. So you get losses for the debt as well as for the money you put in. Okay? And the general partner, unless the general partner is guaranteeing the loan, the general partner is guaranteeing the loan. Well, that's what I said. I was missing something here, right? If the general partner guarantees the loan, you don't have any debt. The general partner has debt.
So that's why the K1s drop off sometimes then, over time. You don't think?
Brad, have you ever seen a general partner guarantee the debt? I don't see,
no.
I never see that happen. That's
what
a
about
recourse
if it was
loan,
partial
right? I mean,
recourse?
You're talking about a recourse loan. I'm going, seriously.
No,
who would
partial
prefer not to
recourse.
be on the hook for their debt? Raise your hand. By the way, should there, everybody raise your hand right now. Who prefers not to be on the hook? Now, when you're doing a little deal, sometimes you're on the hook.
What about partial recourse?
It depends. It depends.
Okay.
Then it could just be partial. So you always have to look at those deals. But what I find is that sometimes general partners will steal the debt, and by the way, inappropriately. Okay, and they will attribute the debt to themselves when it should be attributed to the limited partners. And then you just need to invest with somebody else. Give her a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom, for explaining.
Anyway, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It is much more challenging. Okay, it is much more challenging. Here's the key. So, if you're investing in a foreign country, you've got 2 countries, but you really have 4 times the amount of work. And so, I'm really hesitant to have anybody invest in a foreign country. Okay, first of all, because it's very expensive. Because you've got to have somebody in this country understand the U.S. laws. You've got to have somebody in Canada understand the Canadian laws, and then you have to have the Canadian and the U.S. people talk to each other to make sure that they understand each other, and that's not always easy because Canadian is a different language, right? So seriously, Canadian CPAs in my network. So, but you do have to make sure they talk to each other. So this is a matter where everybody's situation is going to be slightly different, and what you're going to do is you're going to want to make sure you don't pay taxes in the U.S. Right? You'll still pay taxes in Canada. You're probably not going to be doing the same kinds of offsets, but you need to make sure you have good, strong representation in both Canada and the U.S. Make sense? All right, give a round of applause.
Why can you explain the difference between the two?
Yeah, so it has to be, well, I like irrevocable because irrevocable gets it out of my estate. Okay, that's why I want it irrevocable. Also, if it's revocable, it's taxed to the grantor. So if it's a revocable trust, you're not accomplishing this. If this is a revocable trust right here, then these people are still going to be taxed on it. So it needs to be irrevocable. What I prefer, okay, this is the last thing because we got to go. This is actually called a BDIT, Beneficiary Defective Income Trust. And it means that actually who's taxed on it, it's irrevocable, and the beneficiary is taxed on it, not the trust. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.